I'm sure most of you have heard about the civil unrest sweeping across this country. It had its peak in early June, but now it's ongoing for nearly 58 days in Portland, and it's expected to get worse tonight. There's protests planned in various places, and we're seeing militias march in Louisville, Kentucky. But depending on which source you get your news from, you've either heard that these are violent riots or they're peaceful protests. I'm assuming that if you're someone who's a regular viewer of mine, you've probably heard me refer to them as violent riots. I have evidence to back this up, but the bigger point I want to make today is going through the news, the claims put out by very powerful, large mainstream institutions, fact-checking them, showing you what's really going on to the best of my abilities and breaking down the lies. But it got me thinking. Donald Trump has long said that the media, the fake news, is the enemy of the people. What does it really mean to be the media? It depends. It depends on your colloquial understanding of the word. I mean, to be honest, I'm a member of the media and I have a massive audience much larger than some of these news organizations. But with their combined viewership, there are people in media who operate simply to push a political narrative, maybe to make money, maybe to help someone win an election. I honestly don't know, but the fake news is seriously bad right now. And it may be the worst I have ever seen. Dare I say, it seems that certain portions of our media institutions, I'm being very careful with my language here, are proving Trump is right. They absolutely are the enemy of the people. I'll give you a simple example. How many news stories have emerged saying that unmarked, unidentified police are snatching up people off the streets? I mean, dozens, hundreds. The articles are running rampant. From some fake news article emerges a fake op-ed, which begets us more fake op-eds. The reality is there were 2 instances and the police are clearly identified with badges and with police patches on their chests, and a federal court has even ruled as such. Now, you can disagree with the morality of this tactic of policing, but it is a fact that police use unmarked vehicles across the country. That's not new. And it's a fact that there are plainclothes police officers, not new either. And it's a fact that this news is so insanely fake, I believe it's causing massive and serious damage to our country. And it really does feel like if someone doesn't get a handle on this, if something isn't done, we're going to implode. But hey, people are allowed to speak. So the best I can do is make a video like this, going through the latest news pertaining to the ongoing unrest, notably in the Pacific Northwest, to tell you what's really happening and show you the proof. Again, you can disagree absolutely with the morality of the policing. I'm not going to tell you whether it's right or wrong. I'm going to show you that the media is lying. Why? I don't know. Maybe they're just inept. But this is a very serious problem, which is resulting in damage to our institutions. Police in Seattle now telling residents they cannot protect them as the riots sweep through the city. Should we have police? Well, it depends on your perspective. But if you believe what the mainstream media has been telling you, you probably have a warped view of what's going on. If you don't believe me, give me about 15 or 20 minutes to break down exactly how they lied and show you where the lies are. Again, morality isn't the question. The question is, are you being told the truth? Now, before we get started, head over to timcast.com/donate if you'd like to support my work. There's many ways you can give, but the best thing you can do, subscribe and share this video. I am doing this video intending to reach people who might not be familiar with what's going on with the fake news and why Donald Trump refers to the fake news as the enemy of the people. I'll give you a really simple example. The Washington Post's Eric Wemple, who's not that bad, says Trump called the media the enemy of the people. He means it. But Trump has repeatedly clarified and stated he's saying the fake news, the people at these media companies who write fake stories for reasons we can't say, we can't read minds. We can assume it's for politics, it's for money. But Trump is talking about the fake news, and he specifically refers to certain organizations, say CNN, which absolutely has put out fake news. I'm going to prove it. Give me a second. We're going to walk through some of these stories. First, let me show you this story from the Washington Post, because I think it's appropriate considering what we just saw from the other Washington Post story. They say, it was like being preyed upon. Portland protesters say federal officers in unmarked vans are detaining them. Wow. Sounds scary, sounds crazy. Unmarked vans. Here's where the story begins. Let me read it. Federal customs officials said Friday their agents had detained a demonstrator in Portland in a widely seen video circulating online that showed two men in apparent military garb taking a young man wearing all black into custody, defending the apprehension by describing the man as being suspected of attacking federal agents and property. The defense came as federal authorities were under criticism for their tactics from elected officials. In a statement Friday, CBP said its agents had taken the action in the video and that they had information indicating the person in the video was suspected of assaults against federal agents or destruction of federal property. Notice how the story that first emerged just said unmarked vans. That's true. The vans are not marked. How then did the story start to evolve from unmarked vehicles to secret police force? NPR saying, grabbing unmarked people. Then we see CNN mysterious arrest video with unidentified police. Whoa, wait a minute. At first, we knew they were police. Now they're unidentified police. And it evolves. Unidentified federal officers are scooping up protesters in Portland. Are other cities next? Wait, what do you mean are other cities next? This is just happening in Portland. And they're not unidentified federal officers. They were just in an unmarked van. They're clearly marked as police. Do you see how that evolution happened? The first story says unmarked vehicles. They then say unidentified police, admitting we know that they are police. But which agency, which badges? Now, this is actually a lie. We know what agency. They're wearing the patches on their arms. We can see it in the videos. It then becomes unidentified federal officers, still in the realm of police. Then it's Homeland Security was destined to become secret police. Then, barely worth a discussion, the DHS official dismisses uproar over use of unmarked vehicles in Portland. You see how the story just keeps moving on and evolving. And then we come to one of the latest pieces by Vox, the crisis of the Republican Party. How did we go from two viral videos of cops using a long-standing tactic of unmarked vehicles? It happens everywhere across this country, with clearly identifiable patches on their arms and police on their chest. Yes, they have badge numbers. To all of a sudden, it's the Republican Party. This is why Donald Trump and many others say the press is the enemy of the people. I do not believe that many of the journalists who are doing this realize they're doing it. I think many of them are completely inept. They see a story and the language changes. One story going back 2 weeks persists to this day. New stories get written over and over again, where now, a week later, having only 2 video clips of identifiable DHS police officers becomes a crisis of the Republican Party on July 24th, where they literally say in the piece, they say, in both cases referring to Reconstruction, it was uniformed soldiers, not unidentified state security forces, from an alphabet soup of obscure DHS agencies. They were being used to protect moves towards racial progress. They say, outside of Northern Ireland, there is no example of state security forces being deployed under circumstances like this in any democratic state. This is an op-ed piece that is just taking all of the fake news that's been written by a ton of people, and they've pushed the story to its extremes. Information laundering. What started as someone wearing a helmet in all black who is suspected of engaging in rioting, being questioned for but an hour and a half, turns into Trump's secret police. But hold on. A judge denied the Oregon Attorney General's motion to restrict federal police actions. Why? Because as it turns out, the judge says they were clearly identified as police. He says in both instances of a federal seizure, it is either admitted or clearly visible that the agent's uniforms say police. Beyond the 2 examples, the state failed to show that the federal officers were involved in any widespread unlawful practice or that others would be harmed in the future. It has presented no evidence of any official orders or policies and has presented no evidence that these allegedly illegal seizures are a widespread practice. Despite the broad language in the complaint, Oregon has shown at most that this type of seizure has happened twice. And what? The people were detained? That's it? So why is the media pushing the lie? I'll tell you. Most of these people are playing a game of telephone. Someone writes a story. The Washington Post literally just says it's unmarked vans detaining people. So what? Have you ever been to any major city? Have you ever thought critically about what it's like when you're in New York and you see a taxi cab full of cops? It's because in New York, there are many different unmarked vehicles. You ever get pulled over by a state trooper in an unmarked vehicle? It's totally normal. So why the framing? Why the false framing about what's really going on? And from there, the game of telephone turns unmarked vans into unidentified federal officers into a secret police force. They're not. That's just absolutely not true. And from there, it becomes political. Trump is determined to split the country in two. That's what they say. He's trying to portray blue cities as a threat. We then get this story. Philadelphia's top prosecutor is prepared to arrest federal agents after Trump said he would send more agents into more cities. The media is now telling us your city will be just like Portland. Are more cities next, they say? Over at WBUR, are other cities next? Why, it would seem so. And the Philly district attorney says, I'll arrest these federal officers. In the first sentence, Bloomberg saying, numerous reports and lawsuits regarding unbadged and ununiformed federal officers arresting, beating, and detaining people in unmarked vehicles. Where did that come from? I showed you the original article. They didn't say anything about that. They said it was an unmarked van and people got detained. That's it. And from there, Bloomberg publishes a story nearly a week later saying they're being beaten and arrested. They weren't arrested. They were detained for questioning. That was it. And they have badges and they're in uniform. Where did this come from? They made it up. From that, which they made up, Trump and many others will say the media, the fake news media, to clarify, is the enemy of the people. When Washington Post writes a story and says unmarked, vehicles are detaining people, well, that's fine. It literally happened. There were two instances. I think it's important to note the context, just two instances of this. And again, you can complain about the morality of doing that. That's not the point. The point is, how did we get from there to here? Because the media doesn't do the reporting. They play a game of telephone and everybody then gets confused. They're confused about what's really happening. You see, from here, we now have a district attorney in Philly saying he will arrest these agents under the presumption that Trump will be sending camo-wearing federal officers in unmarked vehicles, a narrative that they're essentially making up. What Trump has really done is deployed the FBI in Operation Legend. That's what they're talking about in Philly. So let me clarify for those that don't understand. Trump said he would send agents to more cities. He would send agents to more cities. Bloomberg then uses the reports, the numerous game of telephone about things that aren't happening in Portland, and conflates Operation Legend, which is FBI investigations, into camo-wearing riot control cops. Not the same thing. The media is just completely inept, and many of them are actually lying on purpose. So whether or not you want to agree with the president that they're the enemy of the people or not, I hope I've shown you enough so far about how wrong all of these stories are. But I can show you more. Now, notably, I'll be fair. I showed you the judge's ruling saying the police are clearly identifiable in these two circumstances. Then why are all of these reports coming out claiming people were being beaten? It didn't happen. But take a look at this. FBI media alert. A reward as part of Operation Legend. Operation Legend is not Operation Diligent Valor. Diligent Valor is what we are seeing in Portland. If you don't like that, it's fine. Just make sure you know the truth. That Trump wants to deploy FBI agents across the country, DEA agents for investigations, not armored riot control personnel. They're guarding federal buildings in Portland, and he recently announced a tactical team would be deployed to Seattle. But take a look at this. Here's another way the media plays games. No, Obama did not sign the law authorizing arrests of Portland protesters by unidentified federal agents. My, how far we have come. The unidentified federal agents now becomes a fact. And I don't mean literally. I mean, people are just repeating it over and over and over, and it's just not true. I'll tell you what is true. Obama did sign the NDAA indefinite detention provision. Now, they're not referring to that specifically, but the criticism is that Obama in 2011 empowered future presidents sweeping authorities for arresting individuals, with the ACLU saying President Obama's action today, December 31st, 2011, is a blight on his legacy because he will forever be known as the president who signed indefinite detention without charge or trial into law. The executive director of the ACLU said, the statute is particularly dangerous because it has no temporal or geographic limitations and can be used by this and future presidents to militarily detain people captured far from any battlefield. The ACLU will fight worldwide detention authority wherever we can, be it in court, in Congress, or internationally. That's the NDAA indefinite detention provision. Now, Trump isn't using that. What's happening in Portland is actually really simple. Bellingcat lays it out, okay? On July 4th, Portland's 39th consecutive night of protests, more than 1,000 people assembled in front of the Justice Center. They began launching dozens of commercial-grade fireworks into the concrete facades of both buildings, prompting a response from the police and federal agents inside both buildings. The whole situation prompted the first major federal response to Portland's nightly protests. I know many of you may have already heard a lot of this stuff because I've covered it in many of my segments, but I'm doing this because there are many people who don't understand just how fake all the news is that's coming out. They don't understand how fake it is. And I was having a conversation with a friend trying to go through all of the layers of fake news, and it is becoming impossible. So I thought maybe I just need to dedicate a whole segment to going through all of this to show you what's really happening. The edge of all-out war. Bellingcat's reporter on the ground seems fairly sympathetic to the left-wing groups that are throwing commercial-grade fireworks at the building, starting fires, trying to cut through the barricades. But as Bellingcat says, it was the 39th night. Now, in filings from Operation Diligent Valor, they say, on the morning of July 4th, the DHS Rapid Deployment Force implemented tactics intended to positively identify and arrest serious offenders for crimes such as assault, while protecting the rights of individuals engaged in protected free speech activity. You can say they're wrong, that's fine, but the argument is that these people have tried to, they broke into the courthouse, okay? They say, it stepped up its response to increasingly violent attacks in the Oregon City on July 4th, the day after a group of people broke into the courthouse, according to the affidavit by the FPS. That's the Federal Protective Service, their regional director, Gabriel Russell. You can argue they're morally wrong. That's fine, just as long as you know. On July 3rd, it would seem, they broke into the courthouse. A few days ago, about a week or so ago, it was reported by Bellingcat that people tore down the doors of the courthouse and attacked the federal agents inside. We are not dealing with unidentified, unmarked police. This, to me, is a perfect example of what Trump is saying when he says the enemy of the people. When you see videos from July 17th, where a man was raising a hammer to a federal agent. The video says Portland protest. Man caught on video attacking a U.S. Marshal with a hammer. Why won't the media, various outlets, dig into the sources on this one? I think I know why. I really do. What we are seeing is news organizations reporting on somebody who filmed a video and then posted to Twitter. That's what it is. When I cover the news, I try to find the sources of the claims and verify the claims that are made. But many of these news organizations just regurgitate through a game of telephone, a perverse game of telephone, something they read from somebody else. And that's the point I wanted to show you. The initial story from the Washington Post. Portland protesters say federal officers in unmarked vans are detaining them. They know they're federal officers. This evolves into unidentified federal officers are other cities next and the secret police. And that ultimately becomes the most egregious, unbadged, ununiformed, beating, arresting in unmarked vehicles. That's where we're at now with the game of telephone. Clearly something that just never happened and was never initially reported. But with each article that gets written, they exaggerate, they push further, and they make it more and more extreme. And that is what the true enemy of the people is. Not the individuals, but based on their intentions, but perhaps the banality of evil. The individuals who just carry on with writing more and more sensational nonsense based on nonsense, and they make everything worse. To the point where the Seattle Police Department pulls back, defund the police pulls forward, and we end up with a letter like this. The Seattle Police informs business owners that they are on their own against rioters. The city council has tied their hands. The police do not have the tools to combat mob violence. This is why the media has become the enemy of the people. And I'm going one step beyond Trump, not because they're evil. Some of them, I think, are. Not because they're trying to hurt you necessarily, but because they aren't doing their job anymore. And this is more so the banality of evil. Journalists who don't fact check, who don't source their information. Pundits and activists who have political goals, who like the fact that everyone is confused. And then in that confusion, the people, the city council, the politicians bend over to these fake stories, this fake paranoid, delusional conspiracy reality, and they strip the police of their ability to do their job. And who gets hurt? The people. That's right. People are being driven mad on social media. Journalists are writing fake news and whipping up a frenzy. Regular people who are seeing this believe the worst is happening. They believe that, like all hell is breaking loose. And then they demand the police be stopped. I mentioned this earlier. There's a video from PragerU where their host, Will Witt, asks some young black men, how many unarmed black men do you think were killed last year? Maybe he said black people. And someone says 1,400. The answer is actually closer to the single or low double digits, 9 or 13, according to your source. USA Today says, in a fact check, the Washington Post lists 13 individuals shot by police, unarmed black men, or black people, 13. And that's a problem. I completely believe it's a problem. But these people increased it by a factor of, 100? They believe it was substantially worse than it really was. And when you do, maybe you'll say the police must be stopped. But then we heard what happened next. People came out, smashed up the windows of the businesses in Seattle. And it was the innocent bystanders, the civilians, who ended up getting their windows smashed out. Now, full disclosure, to be completely fair and honest and transparent, the federal judge has now ruled the police can use their crowd control measures. So it's good news for the police, and it's good news for the citizens. The federal government is intervening to protect the people who are being victimized by mob violence. But the fake news is causing it. And the fake news also exacerbates things like this. In response to these stories about violent militias, we now have 2 militias marching in Louisville, and somebody accidentally discharged a weapon, it would seem. That's how insane and crazy things are getting. The more the media whips up this game of telephone in a desperate attempt to get clicks and get traffic and produce news, the worse things are going to become. I bring you back to this story from Vox, where they say Portland, polarization, and the crisis of the Republican Party. They actually say that, a significant portion of the population is okay with what's happening as long as it hurts their enemies. They're creating the other, the villains. They're blaming you. I'll blame the media, okay? The media is a very tiny fraction of industries, of corporations with tons of power that are manipulating people through laziness, ineptitude, and sometimes willful manipulation. That includes Vox. But Vox wants you to be angry at the Republican Party, saying that they want you to be attacked. You know what? I will absolutely take some criticism because I slam the Democrats all the time. But I slam the political interests, the Democratic Party and the media, very much like I'm doing now. I don't know what the solution is. What I do know is you're being lied to. And these lies are making everything get worse. The people in Portland who are attacking the federal government could stop at any moment. Realize this. The far left that comes with commercial grade fireworks, like I showed you from Bellingcat, could just stop. The peaceful protesters who demand justice from the feds could also demand that the far left stop throwing these weapons, like they did in that one famous viral video where the man is breaking up the ground. They pick him up and they bring him to the police, but they don't do it. They don't. The polarization will just keep getting worse. So you know what? Vox is correct. There are people who are okay with this so long as it hurts their enemies. And so long as we follow down this track of media playing a game of telephone instead of sourcing the root of their information, things are going to get worse and worse. So I'll tell you what I try to do. I try to make sure that when I report on something, I'm looking at the source information. I don't settle for some op-ed from a conservative website. I use a third-party fact-checking agency, NewsGuard, on all of my sources, and they even give Vox a green light. I try to make sure that if someone makes a claim, I watch the video. And there you can see that these people don't do it. July 24th, this is just yesterday, they took a week-old story and rewrote it again to its extreme. And so did Bloomberg. So maybe this is why they're the enemy of the people. Maybe this is why Trump is right. The fake news is damaging this country beyond recognition. You can criticize Trump. You can say he's the worst president in the world, and you can vote for Joe Biden if you want, or the Green Party, or the Libertarian Party, anybody you want. I'm not here to tell you what you should believe morally, but I am here to tell you that you're being lied to. I'll leave it there. Share the video if you think it's important people see how bad this stuff is. Otherwise, I don't know what else to do. But I will see you all in the next segment coming up at 6 p.m. over at youtube.com/TimCastNews. Thanks for hanging out. I'll see you then.